I have been in the field of orthopedic research for over 25 years. I'm interested in regenerative medicine that incorporates both cells, biomaterials, and various growth factors to help the body regenerate itself. Typically, with reconstruction or regeneration of the musculoskeletal system, we encounter defects that have open spaces that need to be filled. Those defects can include bone, cartilage, and muscle. Things like large bone tumor resections, cartilage defects in the knee and other joints, and tracheal reconstructions in which we can redesign a larger tracheal ring.
We've been searching for a way to modernize and improve our ability to reconstruct airways. And for those people, adults and children alike, we really have no option. And in conjunction with Dr. David Zeltzman from Adult Cardiothoracic Surgery, we developed some concepts for how to incorporate 3D printing technology and tissue engineering to produce an artificial airway.
So the 3D printers that are commercially available as of now are ones that are used for rapidly prototyping any sort of plastics, whether it's a cell phone case or a toy for your 3-year-old. Anything that you can imagine we can 3D print. However, we want to take that technology and move it into the living realm.
My initial concept of 3D printing was early studies that looked at modifying inkjet printers, where we incorporate a bio-ink that includes cells within a delivery vehicle. That hydrogel can then be polymerized or hardened upon heat or UV light stimulation, so that we can actually make a complex structure three-dimensionally that incorporates living cells. The hardened hydrogel is then able to keep the cells alive and viable. It's also biocompatible so that it can be safely implanted in humans.
So we had to completely rebuild one of the printer heads to make it accept cells and living tissue. It was a completely separate apparatus that we've had to re-engineer in order to adapt a commercially available machine to be used for printing living human cells.
David and I were of the thought that this was all science fiction, that the concepts we were thinking about in our heads were 20 and 30 years away. And when we sat down with Dan and Todd, and they informed us that these were concepts that they were using now, and that perhaps we can adapt some of these orthopedic uses to airway reconstruction, we became very, very excited.
So we can take a patient's CAT scan data and x-rays, and it'll show us what is the pathology and what the problem is. We can actually then take that, import it into our 3D modeling software to create a normal and functional 3D image of the person's trachea, and then we can print that out for implanting.
Data from our lab to date have shown that we've been able to replicate the structure and function of tracheal rings in such a way that it would be able to handle the mechanical rigors of surgical implantation in humans.
David and I both have patients that ultimately die from airway disease because we have nothing to offer them. So for those patients, this would mean a chance at a life, at a real life.
The great thing about being a member of the research team at the Feinstein Institute is our exposure to clinicians and translational studies. For example, if a physician notices something that he does not have a treatment for, he can walk across the street, come right into the building, and find someone that is researching on a disease that he is looking for.
We provide for them the expertise, the resources required to accomplish their clinical goals. And they help us to understand what the clinical issues are that we can then incorporate into our research design and methodology. What's most exciting about the work that we do here is the ability to actually get our basic science translated into patients being healed and better.
This collaboration between clinician and basic scientist allows us to produce the next advances in tissue engineering and surgery. And we think that 3D printing and tissue engineering technologies will ultimately revolutionize surgery.
Our lab has a number of projects in the area of 3D bioprinting that include not only tracheal rings, but also nasal septum reconstruction, ear reconstruction, bone reconstruction for large defects from bone tumor or trauma, Each of these grafts would be able to be customized for each patient specifically based on their MRI and their own stem cells. I've seen the progression of the availability of biomaterials and other technologies come into play, and this, to me, the concept of 3D bioprinting allows me to use my imagination to actually reconstruct and manufacture things I could only dream of 25 years ago.